Hello everyone. Today in this video we are going to demystify the Land Acquisition Ordinance. Before we can understand the ordinance, we need to see how land acquisition laws in this country have actually progressed. In the beginning, we had the Land Acquisition Act of 1894, which was brought in by the Britishers, and it continued for a very long time till 2013, where the Act to Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act came. Now this ordinance that has come on 31st of December 2014 actually amends the Act of 2013. So we will be discussing the 2013 provisions before we can discuss the ordinance. So let's start at the very beginning. What did the Act of 1894 do? It looked at rehabilitation and resettlement as being separate from land acquisition. So the Land Acquisition Act of 1894 only talked about land acquisition without giving any regard to rehabilitation and resettlement. Now obviously, because of which, after land acquisition there was not enough emphasis on rehabilitation and resettlement. This was one reason why there was a lot of criticism of this act. Also, the compensation paid to the farmers was not really fixed and was prone to arbitrary decisions by the governments. So because of which, again there was a lot of farmer protests which led the public opinion to be against this act. Because of which, the Act of 2013 was brought in, which looked at the problem as a whole. So this act, along with giving provisions of how to acquire land, also told us how to rehabilitate and resettle people. It also fixed compensations. It also provided for rehabilitation conditions which the government was supposed to adhere to in case of an acquisition. So now let's look at in what all cases would land be acquired. First is government can acquire land for its own use. Secondly, the ultimate aim could be to transfer to either a private entity or to PPP, but for public purpose. The third is the government acquires land and immediately transfers it to the private entity, but again for public purpose. So it's very important to remember that if there is no public purpose, then the government would not be acquiring land. Then the private individual should effectively go and acquire land for himself. So this was the philosophy behind the act. Now in the remaining two, these two, the immediate where you're transferring to PPP or you're transferring to private, the Act of 2013 said that 80% of the project affected families need to give prior consent before you can acquire their land. Only in case where the government acquires for its own use was this provision not there. But we need to still explore this a little further. What exactly was public purpose? Public purpose was defined in these 6 ways: defense, rails, highways, ports, irrigation. Then if you have a project for some project affected people, so if you're having a dam and people getting affected by that dam, so if you rehabilitate those people, that is project affected people. Planned development of cities or villages, government administered institutions, and people affected by natural calamities. So now, if land was acquired by government for itself but for other purposes other than these 6 that we mentioned, or the land was acquired by public sector companies for either these purposes or anything else, or the land was acquired for PPP or private projects for providing public goods or public services, this provision of 80% consent was imposed. So to make myself clear again, if the government acquired land for purposes other than these mentioned on the right, then even then the government also required 80% consent. Similarly for public sector companies, for any purpose, PPP or private projects for any purpose. Whenever this is the case, 80% consent of affected families was required. What were the other provisions of this Act? Firstly, there was in the 1894 Act, the first one, there was an urgency clause where without actually making any due process, without seeing what kind of an impact are you going to have on the families, you could acquire land if there was an emergency. Now this emergency word was very dicey and it drew a lot of criticism. So in the 2013 Act, emergency clause could be used only in two particular cases: national defense and natural calamities. That was one provision. Then social impact assessment was to be made compulsory. So social impact assessment means that whenever a project comes, you have to understand the whole ecosystem of the people living there and what social impact those people are going to face because of the project. So that would have come under social impact assessment. Also, to make sure that the food security of the country doesn't get compromised, multi-crop irrigated land could not be acquired. Also, what happens if somebody, let's say some land was acquired, but no project was started on it for 5 years? In that case, the 2013 Act provided that the land would go back to the landowners. So now what changes is the ordinance exactly bringing? These right now that we discussed were provisions of the 2013 Act. Now we'll go on to the changes that the ordinance is bringing. First of all, 5 categories of land purposes was defined: defense, rural infrastructure, affordable housing, industrial corridors, and PPP, where the government owns the land. In all these 5, some provisions of the initial 2013 Act have been removed. So no social impact assessment is required. Like I told you about the consent of 80% families. So 80% families in case of private projects and 70% consent in case of PPP used to be required, but now that has been done away with. So these 5 kind of projects do not require the consent of the families getting affected. Then multi-crop irrigated land could also be acquired. Like we told you, in the 2013 Act, multi-crop irrigated land could not be acquired. So now there are also certain other changes which the ordinance is bringing. In terms of return of land, earlier the land used to go back to the landowners if it was not developed within 5 years. Then, now after the ordinance, it says 5 years or a time specified by the project owner as to in which time will he be able to complete the project. So if I am the project developer and I say that I need 20 years to complete my project, then whichever is larger. So they will say that if in 20 years nothing is done, or if in 20 years it is not developed, then it will go back to the original landowners. So there is a very big difference here. Now what used to happen in India a lot was that a lot of time used to be taken by litigation. So whenever a land acquisition happened, somebody would approach the High Court or the Supreme Court and there would be a stay imposed on acquisition. So effectively the project owner could actually not undertake any development. So what happened to the time wasted? Initially in the 2013 Act, it was counted in the 5 years. So let us imagine that 4 years were wasted in litigation and the person only had 1 year left out of the 5. So but once the 5 years are over and the person does not develop, then the land went back to the landowners. So this provision was very much in favor of the landowners. But now the government has very clearly stated that the time wasted in litigation would not be counted in the 5 year or the specified time like I mentioned before. So the time wasted in litigation has now been removed from the time which is given to the developer to develop the land. So this now provision goes really in the favor of the developers. Offences by government servants. The provision then was the HOD if there is, let us say, an allegation or let's say a scandal in which the government is getting implicated, then the HOD would be assumed to be guilty then. But now you actually need prior sanction for prosecution of the government servant. So again here the liability of the government servants has been really done away with. Okay, one thing, a big question mark is about industrial corridors. In the 5 categories of land that I was mentioning, which have now been given exemption from SIA, from consent, and multi-crop irrigated land, one thing was industrial corridors. Now, till now, we do not have an exact precise definition of what an industrial corridor means. So if 5 companies come together and say that we want a vast tract of land because we are 5 companies, so effectively we are a corridor. So would that be taken as a corridor? Who gives the permission or who decides whether something is a corridor or not? Because in the garb of this, a lot of land acquisition can be done by land sharks. So we still need to wait for clarity on this. Maybe there will be some notification later by the government giving a definition or something. So that, I think, according to us, are the main issues that the ordinance is talking about. And there are other things related to this, like what is the compensation like, what are the rehabilitations. We'll probably talk about that in another video. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the video. Comments and suggestions welcome. Thank you.